Say. Good evening.
No. I go with the flow. Yeah, no.
Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us. We'd like to call our meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is our Pledge of Allegiance. Now, everyone please rise and join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we'll have our roll call attendance. Madam Clerk.
Director Diamond,
Here.
Director Kelly,
Here.
Director Watts,
Here.
President Levesque,
Here.
Director Knapp,
Here.
Student Advisor Nichols.
Here.
Student Advisor Reed. Here. Superintendent Sweetie.
Here. Thank you. Next, we'll have our approval of the agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to change on our agenda this evening? Or do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Motion to approve agenda as presented.
I second.
It's been moved by Director Diamond and seconded by Director Watts to approve the agenda as presented. Madam Clerk.
Director Diamond,
Yay.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Watts,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Yay.
Director Knapp.
Yay. Thank you. Next up is our approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes, our regular meeting minutes from August 12th and our all-day workshop minutes from August 19th. Do we have any changes to our regular meeting minutes from August 12th? Or is there a motion to approve them as presented?
Make a motion, we approve the regular meeting minutes from August 12th.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Knapp and seconded by Director Kelly to approve the regular meeting minutes from August 12th. Madam Clerk.
Director Diamond,
Yes.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Watts,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Yes.
Director Knapp.
Aye. Thank you. Next up is our board all-day workshop minutes from August 19th. Is there any changes anyone would like to make, or do we have a motion to approve the workshop minutes?
Motion to approve workshop minutes.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Director Diamond and seconded by Director Knapp to approve the board all-day workshop minutes from August 19th. Madam Clerk.
Director Diamond,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Watts,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Aye.
Director Knapp.
Aye.
Thank you. All the minutes are then approved. Next up, we would have our portion of the meeting for our public comments. I don't see anyone signed up.
I don't want to say.
Anybody in the audience want to speak tonight? All right, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Our consent agenda includes our budget report, our superintendent annuals report, our personnel report, warrants, 2 out-of-state traveler requests, minimum basic ed requirement compliance, our mental health counselors cooperative agreements renewal, school data solutions for homeroom for educators agreement, and our Everett Community College and the high school access interagency agreement. Is there anything anyone would like to pull from the agenda for further discussion? Or we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second. It's been moved by Director Kelly and seconded by Director Watts to approve the consent agenda as presented. Madam Clerk.
Director Diamond,
Yay.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Watts,
Aye.
President Levesque,
Yay.
Director Knapp.
Thank you. Our consent agenda is approved. Next up is our new business portion. And before we move on to our new business portion, we want to recognize a new person that we just approved in our consent agenda. We approved our personnel report, and that included a new assistant principal at Pioneer Elementary. I'd like to welcome Sue Kraus.
Sue Kraus, welcome.
Welcome back. Just in case you didn't know, Sue Kraus was one of my kids' kindergarten student teachers. So
Oh, my gosh.
my baby taught her all the things. And she taught my baby all the things. It was mutual. All right, the first item on our new business is our report of the donations approved by our superintendent for August.
So for August, we have a donation from the SVLC Parent Club. It's the second donation for a second basketball hoop. And it's a value of $2,458.38, and it'll go in that same spot that we showed during the study session. Nice. So generous people in our community that care about our schools that are willing to give us things like this. It's awesome. Yes.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you to our parents that made that possible. Wonderful. Next up is our annual program compliance report. Dr. Sweetie.
Yes, and Brenda, could you show that from? So this is a required action that we do each year. And it's basically, there's 2106 outlines, and there's RCW WAC on this, that we have policies and procedures and guidelines in place to address each one of these aspects. So and then 1310 talks about how we adopt our policies and our manuals and our administrative processes. So it's having appropriate measures that against loss and damage. So we have policy 4040. And then we also have policy 3231. So this is a long list. B is supervision of instructional practices and procedures. So that's how do we evaluate our staff and supervise our staff to ensure that they are performing in a way that provides quality instruction and supervision. So we have policy 5240, excuse me. In C, it's our current instructional materials are available that are available for required courses. We have a policy that actually talks about and describes what's required in the selection of materials and courses and how that adoption should take place. And we have an IMPC committee that is a part of that policy. E is a learning resources program that is maintained, and that's outlined in policy 2090, program evaluation, and policy 2104, which talks about our federal and our state funded instructional programs. F is the physical facilities of each building that we may ensure that they are adequate and appropriate for educational programs that are offered. And we have a policy 6800, which describes the safety and operations and maintenance of our school properties. G, there's adequate provision for the health and safety of all students that are within our custody. And so policy 3410, student health, describes that. H, a policy statement pertaining to administration and operation of the school district is available online and in each building's office. And we have that outlined, and it's outlined in 4200, how parents would have access to that and to a safe and orderly environment. This is a lot of words there, but basically it's non-discrimination. We will not discriminate. There's protected listing there of categories, and we will not discriminate. So we have policy 3210, which is pretty lengthy and has been revised multiple times based on laws, but it's non-discrimination and inclusive schools. So we have that, and there's a procedure that goes with that as well. The next one, J, within each school, the school principal has determined that appropriate student discipline is established in the course. So to help with that, we have policy 3241 and procedure 3241P that's about student discipline. And these, as new laws come into place, and there will be some changes coming up soon, we will bring to the board some revisions. And so we stay aligned with what WASDA shares with us that needs to be changed. They give us changes, recommendations based on state law or practice. K is written high school graduation requirements. This is policy 2410. It outlines in the policy and the procedure, the requirements, what classes are required, how many credits are required, what kind of exceptions are made or waivers can be made for graduation. And then in L, it's equivalence among schools and teachers. So what this means is that we have to do a comparability report every year. And thank you to Director Carl Olson, who makes that happen, ensuring that there is equal staffing at our Title I schools. We're required to show that. Thank you, Director Olson, for doing that. He's good. The comparability report. Thank you. Okay, and I think that is it. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. Next up is our 2024-25 interscholastic activities report. And you're gonna share with us a long list of other.
Oh, yes, so at the beginning of each year, I bring to the board and share with you the interscholastic activities that are going to take place during the 24-25 school year. And the idea here is for you to look as a board of what we have and maybe what's, missing or, just ask questions about things here. So you can see that at Arlington High School, these are the activities, athletic activities that we have for each season, fall, winter, and spring. And the idea here is that we have offerings for boys and girls, so that it's fair among that. We also have below that interscholastic activities, which there is a list there of many things. You can see Air Force Junior Reserve Training Officers Corps, you can see drama, FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America, Knowledge Bowl, music, robotics, culinary, sportsmen. There's a long list there of things the students have access to. And then in addition, at Arlington High School, which is, if you have not been to a unified game or activity, you must go. It's the most amazing, inspiring event that you'll go to in the school year. So what it is it is a competition with students who have special needs, but also it has other students have not been identified with special needs. Together, they play these games, and we join with other schools, and it's just one big cheering activity for all groups, both sides. It's awesome. So that's Arlington High School. And then at the middle schools, you can see we have basketball, cross country, track and field, volleyball, wrestling, and wrestling for athletics.
Athletics.
Yes. I will say that, in an effort to, be mindful of our resources, there has been a change at the middle school level. Part of our reductions includes the JV reduction. So this next year, there will not be the JV girls volleyball, or there will not be, and boys, I think both, but JV volleyball and basketball. But for wrestling, there will be, mainly because the way that ebbs and flows is at one moment you might be qualifying for, it's the way the wrestling works. So I'm just sharing with the board. So any questions about that? Interscholastic activities at Howard robotic or Lego robotics, and then instrumental and vocal.
So would you say Post and Heller are pretty equal then in their offerings? It looks,
You can see there's when you look at Post down below, they go league depending on the interest.
oh, right.
It doesn't say that up at the interscholastics. We send this list out to the school, just verifying,
Okay.
what they have for the school year. And
So it could change if you have,
Yeah.
interesting.
okay, moving on down, let's see what we have here for our schools of choice.
Mhm.
So Weston, SBLC, homeschool students, they can access interscholastic activities through their resident school. And then the interscholastic activities, like Western High School, they can join in with those clubs that you see there. But it's,
Is the percussion gonna be an interscholastic at the high school?
I think it's a class. It's a
Okay,
class.
it's not, okay,
It's during the day.
Yeah,
class.
okay.
Yeah.
Remember.
So that's what I have for the board.
Thank you very much. Next up is our financial highlights of our current budget for July. And we'd like to welcome Gina Sutenhorst, our Executive Director of Financial Services, up. We know that you shared some highlights already at our last meeting, but there's more.
Yes, there is more. We have closed out the month of July, so now we're able to give you a report of where things are for July and going over our financial challenges. First I'm missing a slide, my positives, what happened? Anyway, oh, I know what happened. Sorry about that. Financial positives, we always start with positive. We have community support, we have our 4-year educational programs and operations levy, we have our or your capital levy. And those are extremely important to the health of the district and being able to do what we do. Our enrollment, we have experienced growth. This is for 23-24. We had 96 students more than we had estimated to have in our budget. Transportation safety net funds, special education safety net funds. Those are some unplanned for revenues that help reimburse us for extensive costs that also were more than planned for. So that helps us. And then there were some legislative increases for 23-24 that applied retroactively. So the legislative session ended in March, and usually the things that they're doing are go forward. There were some that were pay it backwards, so that was helpful for us. It wasn't a lot, but it was, every little bit helps. And then we do have our financial challenges, as the board is well aware, and I keep making sure to talk about this in an open public meeting for anyone to hear and listen as our board has been involved in this process along the way. We've made budget reductions for 23-24 and for the year coming up, 24-25. And we're still working to recline from our declining fund balance. We've got impacts of the pandemic that are still evident. We're still recovering, and state funding gaps are very much there. The largest disparity being in special education funding. And we do have big needs for our facilities in namely post middle school. And here's the slide that talks about the conditions around our fund balance. You should always be able to know that you can reference these facts. They're in this presentation. I won't go over all of them again, but here is the slide that shows our fund balance trend. And explaining again about the low points that we experience every year, being in December, January, February, and March. Those are low months, but especially June is a very low month. And that is the month, June, when the state gives us only a portion of our monthly allocation. They give us about half of the monthly allocation that month. And so you can see that creates a very sharp decline in fund balance that month, because the revenues and expenditures are not always exactly equal. So fund balance helps you weather those months where you have a lower fund balance.
Gina,
Yeah.
why in June? I'm sure you-
Because that's when the state does not give us the full amount of our monthly
Because why?
apportionment. They have a schedule that they have defined, and I can only surmise the why, but at one point it wasn't this drastic multiple years ago, and they changed the legislature changed it so that there was a bigger disparity in the month of
And
June.
when do we get that? When do we make up that money?
In July,
Okay, so it's a
Yeah.
month later. And then we
yes,
get the normal amount, but then some, the leftover from. June.
yes, the
Okay.
normal amount plus,
Hmm.
and then again in August, it's a little bit higher as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, and the state's fiscal year closes at the end of June 30.
Okay.
Ours closes August 31st. So at the time they made that change, some of the leaders that are at the state level, they talk about how they evaluated school district fund balances back then and determined or came to the conclusion that schools would be able to weather that. And that is now come to pass after years and years where it is not so easily weathered. There are other districts, and us included, that have had to make arrangements during those lower months, June in particular.
Hmm.
And as we've had a loan from our capital projects fund to help us get through those months. So, we were at negative 2.5 million in June. So we looked at that together. Now for July, we're improving. We're, as we would expect, we are negative 331,000 in fund balance for the general fund. And that, here's the list of what our interfund loans, the resolutions that authorize those, because we come to the board in advance to get authorization. And we report back on the amount of what we've given ourselves loan on. We report on the interest and how much we've paid back. So that's what I'm gonna tell you now. We have paid back. Well, we've received a total of 2.67 million in interfund loans from Capital Projects Fund. And we have paid back 2.32 million of that plus interest as of the end of July. And the remaining balance is 351,000 that we still need to repay to the Capital Projects Fund. And the resources that we'll be receiving through the end of the fiscal year will be sufficient to do that. And did I say out loud, the interest was approximately $13,000 that we've had to pay so far. So that is, in a nutshell, very high summary level of the financial highlights where we stand as of July.
I was trying to clarify again, Gina, the 13,000 interest, are we paying ourselves back?
We are paying the
Okay.
capital, we're paying ourselves.
Right, right, so it's not going to somebody else. Okay,
It's the interest the Capital Projects Fund would have earned
right,
had the funds stayed in that fund.
okay,
They would have been invested through the county and had earned interest that way.
okay, perfect, that makes it clear, thank you.
Can you explain what binding conditions are and how close we are to being in that category?
Binding conditions is when you do not have, let me see if I can articulate this correctly, sufficient resources in the current fiscal year to meet your obligations for the whole year. So all of payroll and all of any of the material supplies and things like that, that you must have, that you will have, that you do not have enough resources to meet those needs within the fiscal year. That puts you in, if you're in a negative fund balance at fiscal year end, or if you're budgeting to be in a negative fund balance the next year, that can also create conditions that would trigger a district to come under what's called the binding conditions that is promulgated through OSPI onto districts and in collaboration with the educational service district that is over whichever district, whichever school district is going that way. And yes, so with a $1 million fund balance that we believe will be ending with this year, it is a very narrow landscape to be in. Should there be any significant expenditures that were not planned for, that could create a situation for us. It makes it very, very close. Now, while we're having loans from capital projects in a fiscal year, and we believe we'll need to do that again next year. We know we will need to do that again next year. And that's why our budget for next year is working to rebuild the fund balance. So we should not be on a decreasing trend of fund balance next year. We should be on an increasing fund balance trend. And it remains to be seen how narrowly we can hold on to containing the costs that we have. Because we've built the budget based on certain assumptions, and if those assumptions are far vastly different, we can be in a situation. So we need to be rebuilt in our fund balance. Our ideally would be 1 month's average operating cost, which for us is between 7 and 8 million. A payroll in a given month is close to $7 million. So that is part of a reflection of why you would want to be in that range. So that you can, without an issue, meet a monthly payroll. Let's pretend the state has a massive problem and is not able to distribute for a week or a day the proper funding stream. We would still be able to meet our payroll without interruption because we would have fund balance. That's just a further drastic example, but it kind of illustrates why that's important. So we're building back up, and districts all over the state have different levels that they strive to maintain, whether that's 4% of total expenditures, total operating expenses, 4 or 5%. 6 or 7 or 8%. So it varies across districts, depends on the conditions of the district. So we're working to get back And it'll take us multiple years to do that.
Question, if we had received the full amount from the state, we would not have dipped below and had to borrow?
I think that might be a true statement, yeah. Yeah, because they only give us 5% of our allocation in June, when normally it would be about 9%, even 9%.
Okay.
Safe, more safe.
Yeah.
Good eye on that. I had not thought of that perspective. I'm a little confused why we're not on the same schedule. I mean, we're state. There's a funding there and
Right.
I don't know why the state, and so I was asking my husband about the city of Arlington. I said, what are you on? Like, what's your fiscal? And-
They're on a calendar year, I think. Cities
So
and counties are on a calendar year.
I
I don't
just,
know,
it would be nice to
but
line
it is
up.
defined in statutes.
Mhm.
I wonder if other districts are having the same struggle and if it might be a legislative issue.
I'm willing to give it to our people.
Sherry.
Go, Mr. Smith. Yeah, I think that would be that's an interesting, scenario.
Any other questions for Gina? Or student advisors have any budget questions? No, not yet. Thank you, Gina. We appreciate your watchful eye and your easy to understand explanations. Next up is our highlights of our summer programs 23-24, and we would like to welcome Carl Olson, our Director of Catapult Programs in person, and Mary Lee Herman, our Principal at Arlington High School on Zoom. Welcome.
All right, thank you. I'm Carl Olson, Director of Categorical Programs, and just here to share some highlights from our 2023-24 programs. My focus will be on the Cool Bus, and then I'll turn it over to Marilyn. So similar to years past, we continue to have a bus go around to different neighborhoods with books and with math materials. We have done some expansion and changes over the last couple of years, so we'll be sharing a little bit about that here. First of all, this past summer, we actually combined funds from 4 different sources. So we utilized one of the, or actually 2 of the typical ones, which are family engagement funds from LAP and Title I. This year, we also, going one direction, extended to some preschool type services, and Snohomish County ECAP funds provided some math kits that families could take home. Because with Title and LAP, we have to be careful about sending things home they can keep. So we were able to work on this with our Apple Preschool. And then we had some Title VI funds, and we were able to purchase a wide variety of Native American themed books. Not only for the bus, but I have boxes for each building in my office right now that I'll be bringing up soon to buildings. So don't want to jump too quick because people are busy right now. So it's kind of nice. We're just kind of cobbling from different sources and trying to expand what we do. In terms of sites, and we're still kind of feeling this one out, we added Legion Park. So when we looked at the data from previous years, the Timbers site kept getting smaller and smaller to where last year only had visitors from outside the Timbers, no one from inside Timbers. And so we decided to add Legion Park, and it's kind of right around lunchtime to see, number one, would we just get naturally some families in the middle of the day going by, kind of promote, come visit us, go to lunch, get ice cream. So we worked with the city on that particular site. Definitely more than Timbers, but we're gonna see if we can keep building a little bit on that, maybe build some buzz for that, because it's a good site. There's definitely a lot of people around, but we're still working on kind of building a clientele. So we want to give it a couple years.
Carl, can you remind me where the Timbers are?
The Timbers are the apartments really close to Kent Prairie.
By Burger King? Is that-
No, they're like across the street from what used to be the Free Methodist Church. I think it's the.
Oh, that group, as a
Yeah.
whole, across from the station. I
Exactly.
live by there, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Timbers, okay.
And so like I talked about, we added preschool, but we also added middle school this year. And so we worked with Britt Kleiman, and who I know many of you are familiar with, and we were able to post for middle school library type position on there. We were able to order a lot of high interest books for middle schools, and again, it's growing. We want to keep seeing if we can build on that, but it's a start. And so we've been able to expand it just because of the different funds we're using to kind of reach a larger group of kids. And then overall, we had sometimes up to 100 students check out books, play math games each Wednesday. Total visits of 438, and that's kids. And so that doesn't include, you know, parents, grandparents, family members. So, you know, definitely there's at least always one family member there, sometimes more. But numbers wise, we saw definitely an increase overall just because of not doing timbers and switching sites that way. So overall a success. And we're looking forward to what we can do next year a little bit. We have a few ideas depending on what happens, probably not next year, but the year after with Legion Park. And we decide to look at some other exploring a cooperation with the tribe, for instance, when they're running their programs and some other opportunities.
And Carl, what was your span of time for the summer program?
So 7 weeks, all day on Wednesdays.
Okay.
So it's about a 7-hour.
Okay, and you've, in that same amount of time last year, you see a 10% growth, or like, do you know the numbers that you had?
You know, I can go back and grab those. I would say 10% is a good gauge, just based on the fact that we were down to like 2 kids
Mhm.
at Timbers compared to sometimes as many as 10 to 15 at Legion Park. Just that alone
Mhm.
would raise that.
Feels like Legion would be very, I mean, and then you've got the other park too, Howler Park,
Splash.
with the splash pad, you know, it'd be interesting to do a different day when like the day campers show up there too, but it'd be neat to, that's such an open space.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that one, and we may still investigate that. One of the nice things about Legion Park is most likely we're gonna get people that live there.
Yeah,
Howler Park, they said there are a lot of people that do come from outside,
good point.
and we
Yeah,
didn't know if we get the books back.
good point. Yeah,
And so we kind of weighed that, but it's still
Stay in
one of the spots in our mix based on what you said, because I do wonder if overall we do better, even if we said, well, we can only do this for Arlington School District families, we may still get more kids there.
Are you able to get data on the family, like what the composition is of the people in the apartments? Because the other one, I think it's Pilchuck, is across from Starbucks, and they have a little doggy run, they have the basketball court. It's not so easy maybe for the bus to park and play, but I'm just, that's what I would be curious, is to get like a geography of Arlington and just explore, since we are having more building. We will be
Right.
getting more apartments, right? You have the other one across from the Safeway, doesn't look as family-ish, but I don't know what the demographics are, but
I think Brian Lewis can definitely get us. those.
yeah, Brian, yeah, he knows it all. Brian's like, hey, I don't need any.
He's our guy.
Thank you, Carl. I
You
appreciate it. Yeah, I'm glad to see numbers going up though. That's always good, especially expanding the
Good
middle
summer.
school.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
good.
we just kept thinking of how can we keep making it better each year.
How are you advertising this?
So-
Finding them.
Lot of different ways. I send out weekly messages to families. And then the city, that was the benefit of Legion Park, is they publicized it in theirs. Plus we have postcards that go home with kids and their report cards, and then all the Apple students that goes home in their take-home materials at the end of the year. Gary pushes a couple things out included on the website. So we tried just a variety of different ways to get the word out. I think the biggest change was having the city kind of jump in and take part in that too. All the other things we've always done. So,
Keep that connection, yeah.
okay. And then this one, it might look kind of funny, but I put, could it come back in 2025? And this could be kind of the transition to Marilee, but Marilee and I already are talking about how can we get a program back? Due to finances and how we had to use grants, we had to stop the 8th to 9th grade transition program, which was a 3-week, 5 days a week program at the high school for some of our more at-risk students. one of the reasons why I keep a hold of this slide and this data continued for the whole year is we saw some strong success based on looking at this discipline, grades, F rate, and also just are the kids engaged with something at the school? So we've only begun, but my hope is that we can look at, whether it's this summer, or the next summer, something like this. And I'm working right now, just brainstorming. Brian Long and I have been talking about how we can utilize some CTE activities, because then he can also use some CTE grant funds. We could combine it with, the most likely one would be lab funds and possibly other ones to kind of spread the cost, but also try to build some buzz with the kids. So maybe use these 3 weeks as a way for them to think about how they can interact with the different facets of the high school. I mean, you heard about those activities that Dr. Sweeting mentioned. Maybe even do a couple site visits, like down to Amtech, Everett Community College, connected to Boeing. But start making some connections, and maybe as their final assignment, have the kids do a presentation for their parents some evening when this is done. So it's just at the beginning stages, but data-wise, we found it worked. And if we could find some ways to engage students, especially those that are at risk, to want that connection and seek out that connection, all the better. So the slide's staying up there until we figure out what we're doing. And I think with that, unless there's questions about my part, or I throw some money towards the 8th and 9th. Okay. I will turn it over to Meryl Lee, and I'll stay here in case there's other questions, so.
Yeah, because Carl, I'll probably have you speak to the funding portion. And just to kind of, so Mary Lee Herman, principal at Arlington High School. Thanks for letting me, zoom in here from the high school, because I'm still getting ready for tomorrow. But so to weigh in on the 8th to 9th grade transition program, we knew those kids so well just because we spent those 3 weeks with them. A ton of them felt really comfortable coming into the office, and it made a difference because every single one has a story where you'd go, yeah, that kids need something extra, right? And so, I'm really hoping that, because we've done it twice now, that we can look at that coming back in the future, because it really did make a difference for a lot of impacted kids, and just how well we knew them and, their success, and we'll kind of keep tracking them as well. So to talk about summer school, so let me just give you a little refresher of how we run summer school at Arlington High School. So we have a sliding scale for payment. So kids do pay based on what they can essentially afford to pay. So we have a scale for free and a reduced lunch, and then also full price, kind of across the board, a three level scale. We did decide to cut transportation this year to save money. And I'm going to advocate to bring that back for next year, actually, and I'll talk about why. We have 4 content area teachers that we hire. So for math, history, English, and science. And then we have 1 paraeducator, and then a summer school secretary. This year, because we didn't have transportation, and to make it accessible for all kids, we ran concurrently 2 different sessions, with in-person component. So if kids could transport here, they were here in person. They could take 2 classes here on campus. We have 2 sessions, or they could log in online and do that. So, and we arranged for Chromebook checkout and all of those things. With the, requirements for summer school, they're not allowed cell phones. If they were logging in online, they had to log in through not only Google Meets, but also log into the teachers securely. And if you're not familiar with Securely as a platform, it allows us to monitor whatever you're doing on your screen. Because cheating is a serious concern. And so we set some things in place to try and stop that from happening. Last summer, we just worked with no cell phones in the classroom, and that helped. But with the online component, we wanted to make it as visible as possible. If they were online and doing a test or a quiz, they had to have their camera on. Otherwise, they could have it off to work. So the other thing that we do to try, because we use Apex as a platform, is quizzes and tests can only be taken while they're on campus. So those are only open once they're here with the teacher. We don't open those up for them to do at home because we can't monitor that. And yes, we do have some issues with cheating. So we had 110 students enrolled. This is pretty average for summer school. We usually range about 110 to 130. We had 210 classes that they enrolled in. Some took more than 2. The number of courses they completed were 146. There were 55 courses not completed. 44 of those they failed them. They didn't finish. 11 of those were dropped, whether they chose to stop attending, so no attendance. They didn't end up paying for the class or something like that. So 11 will show up as no credit. And then we do have other options for kids, and we'll look at kind of our subgroup data here in a second, but we still backfill credit for kids. We still do mastery-based credit for kids. And I will soon have data for you on who's on track, especially with this help. We used ESSER funding this year, and I'm gonna let Carl just hop in for a second and speak to how we did that, because I don't exactly know how he made that magic work. But without it, we may not have had a summer school. So Carl, if you wanna hop in on that piece, then I'll get to our
Actually,
subgroup data.
It was LAP funding.
Ah,
Yeah, so we were able, LAP funds were able to allocate those funds towards graduation assistance.
okay.
And transfer program. So it kind of gave us, given where our funding was, we've allocated some for this year and next, just to be able to keep this program going.
Perfect. Okay, so then if we want to hop over to the subgroup data. If we look at our free and reduced and non-free and reduced passing rate, free and reduced lunch, where kids were at about a 68% pass rate. Non-free and reduced, we're at an 87% pass rate. And then if we look at on-site, this is where I'm going to advocate for that bus again. On-site, we had an 85% pass rate, and online was a 68%. Can we all just say ouch? Because I want to say ouch. Okay. And that was with a summer school secretary calling. That was with me calling and reaching out and trying to get more engagement. I did a couple of home visits. Just keep them in here. It's fine. And then when we look at our subgroup passing rate for on-site free and reduced, we had an 82% pass rate. Online 53, and then on-site 87, and then online 86. So, I mean, you can see pretty clearly that having kids, requiring them to be here on campus, as we know, is always the best solution. So I'm not sure that our attempts to be equitable were actually the best this summer in terms of the online and in-person hybrid. So yep, that's how it went. And I will be very honest and say that I feel like I battled more cheating this summer than I ever have before. So it was a struggle.
Marilee, quick question. Did
Yes.
you recognize the cause of why the online might have been more challenging than being in person, specifically with the free and reduced? Because the non-free and reduced looks similar to
Yes.
in school. Could it be like family issues? Could it be? I'm just curious if you noticed anything in particular that was a pattern. Specific.
Well, I think, I mean, summer school is only for credit retrieval. So you're already looking at 100% of kids that for some reason has not been successful in the high school with these classes, whether it's lack of engagement or, you know, something like that, and not having them here in person. It takes a huge piece of the buy-in out. A teacher can't walk by and go, hey, do you need help with that? Hey, are you stuck on that? You're already missing that. The kid has to reach out for help, right? We run no credit advancement with summer school. So it's all kids that already the typical model didn't work for some reason. And now we're distancing them even more from being with a teacher and in a classroom. So, I mean, we had, one kiddo that she actually hid out for me and hopped from house to house when she knew I was coming, bringing her a Chromebook and things like that. So, you know, there's other barriers for sure. And I think by not requiring them to be here, we allowed them access to escape other ways, I guess. So I guess Matt, to answer that, without the relationship here, I mean, I think that's the biggest impact, right? They're not connecting with their teachers here.
And it's 100% online. They don't have to come in and do.
No, it's so they could choose if they wanted to go all online or all in person if they could get here. But we've never run this model before. So this is new. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Is the online 100% online, or is there like you can come in for?
No,
Yes.
so if they were online, they were 100% online. We had a couple kids that didn't engage at all. And once I called parents and said, look, I'm not seeing your kid. I'm gonna have to drop them from summer school. We kind of set up a little contract where if they came in person for the remainder, I'd let them to have a second chance. And that was surprisingly successful. So, you can't really beat being in a classroom with a teacher. So, yeah, and we, yeah.
Or not having oversight would be the barrier.
Well, we've had in the past an activity bus or a bus that would come and go
Yes.
around at hubs throughout the community and pick up students, but.
You just wait on that, please.
Yeah.
What was the cost on having a bus? Do we remember?
What was it, Gina? Was it $5,000 we saved?
Really?
Off the top of my head, I think it was 5,000.
Six or seven.
But keep in
Okay.
mind that it's paid for out of grant money, summer school's paid out of grant money, so it's not like, it's, and we have.
Coming out of budget.
Mhm.
I would say that
grant
should be a
was-
priority, then we should.
The grant is, it will,
The grant wouldn't pay for transportation.
where every year the grants, depending on what we get, like cost of staffing will go up with cost of, increase in inflationary factor.
Minutes, just
And
wait.
there's other things, staff, it's just the most of it costs our staff for the staffing. That's where most of the money goes.
And then a bus driver to go with the bus.
So that's staffing too.
Mhm.
Marilee, can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Is the free and reduced rate for summer school about the same as the normal free and reduced rate at that high school, or is it a little higher or about lower?
I'm not real good at remembering numbers, Mary, to be totally obvious. I'm
English
really,
teacher.
yeah, it's unless they're written down, I'm really not going to remember what to tell you, but I'm happy to pull that. That's a really great question. So,
Free pays something. It's like $50, 75 maybe. So there's some, skin in the game.
yeah, 20, well, we moved it to 50, so it was 50, 100, and then 250.
And then I had another question. We had raised the cost of summer school this year. Did you think that there was less children taking advantage of summer school? Do you think that was?
No, our average is right around 110 to 130. Every year I've done summer school. So, with the exception of the one year it was free after COVID. So, and then it was crazy, but
But it's still.
our pass rates weren't good that year either. So just making it free doesn't necessarily make it work better.
Mhm.
And then I had another question. Sorry, Marilee.
Oh, no, you're good.
Did we feed any of our summer school kids anything? Was there any?
No, they were here 8:30 to 12:30. And so while we had tons of snacks down here in the office, if they needed it, because we kind of outsource and get those, we do not feed them food.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. if
Thank
that's a
you.
factor. It's interesting.
Thanks for answering my 3 questions, all about numbers. Appreciate it. Anybody else have any other questions?
I think that this is worth earmarking, that we just, have this, I know this is on a list for you, Carl, just keeping in mind of grant opportunities, because I think Marilee brings a good point. That this is, we're not getting the success from the population that needs it most when we don't offer a bus. That's what it comes down to.
That's why we do.
Well, and in terms of providing other credit retrieval opportunities for kids, we often recommend Red Comet or BYU, also an out-of-pocket cost. We are working right now on trying to get a 7th period Apex put together so that if kids were able to transport, they could take a 7th period Apex at the end of the day for credit retrieval. I mean, it would make for a longer day, but at least it's a free option. for kids to get credit back. So that's in the works and hopefully I'll have that up and running in about a week, fingers crossed. So
And
We're
then would there be transportation after seventh period?
no, they would have to be able to drive because we have a lot of kids that take it through. So we offer it periods 1 through 6 right now already. And so it would specifically be for that kid that wanted that extra opportunity to make up credit. A lot of the ones that cannot transport, we've already given them a period 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 within their school day. So
Well, it's not, Marilee, I would say, you and Carl, just, it's not for lack of trying. I mean, when I see all the stones you're turning over to make this available for kids.
Yep.
Impressive. I mean, at some point, the kid has to meet you. right?
Yes, they
I
do.
just- I mean, I know this from my own kids and it just, you're giving them multiple opportunities and I love that. But I think the serious nature is, here's what we're doing. You gotta
Yep.
meet us halfway.
I do have to remind myself of that. That's for sure.
But also having an opportunity during the school day to be able to do the Apex and get credit
Yep.
retrieval during the school day is critical.
Right.
It's important.
Yep. And we reserve that specifically for juniors and seniors. So. Yep. Any other questions for me? This is summer school is kind of my baby. So if you ever have any genius ideas, I'm listening. So.
Student advisors have any thoughts or perspectives?
I was just wondering, why it's during school, it's only offered to juniors and seniors. Because I think that credit retrieval for even sophomores could be a good, idea, just, as an encouragement kind of a thing, to show them that like they are capable and that they can do it if a student has failed a class their freshman year. Cause that can be kind of defeating if a student fails a class their freshman year and they're already just like, I'm done.
Mhm,
Then they don't have an opportunity to make up for it,
mhm.
at least like during school until their junior year, like that could be kind of discouraging, I feel like.
Yeah, so there's a couple reasons for that. One, I don't have the space, right? I have to prioritize juniors and seniors because they are the closest to actually hitting graduation, right? And so our classes are pretty packed as it is. I mean, just wait till you guys come this year. I'm so sorry, our classes are huge. But so it's a staffing issue. And then on the other end of that, there's more opportunities for a sophomore within their, next couple of years to get mastery-based credit or backfill credit. So if they're able to work with a teacher and then go back and retrieve that credit, or let's say they failed English 9 and they pass English 10, I can give them credit for English 9. So they don't need an Apex class to do that. So a sophomore has more, I guess, flexibility at that point in their time, in their schedule. And in their future and the amount of time they have left than a junior or senior. Junior or senior, the clock's a lot shorter and a lot tighter. So, I mean, with more staffing, hey, I'm in. That sounds great. But until I get that, that's unfortunately how it goes. So I'm with you 100%. I just need more staff.
And Ms. Harmon, really quickly.
Yeah.
Summer school, how many teachers are working?
I have 4 teachers, Nate. So I have 4 content areas. So math, history, English, science. We do not allow summer school PE because we don't think you can get a PE credit in 4 weeks and actually, do PE. So they can go in those 4 subjects. If they're doing credit retrieval, say an elective or something, we do have one of those teachers kind of oversee that as well. So pretty much anything but PE they can retrieve. But yeah, 4 content area teachers and then 1 paraeducator for support.
And then if we were to do a 7th period credit retrieval, would we still keep those 4 teachers, or would there be space for more teachers?
So right now, actually, we have a paraeducator that's trained and staffs all of our Apex classes. And Apex is overseen kind of in the big picture sense by Stille Valley. And so there's a Stille Valley teacher that grades all of that. Our para, so paras are a lot cheaper to hire and have than teachers. Our para runs those 6 periods for kids. She unlocks all the assignments. She gets them all set up for the kids, does progress checks. And then it's the certified teacher at Stille Valley that grades all the assignments. That's how we kind of make it work. So it's kind of a branch of Stille Valley almost that we run within Arlington High School.
And so what's the appeal in having the seventh period? For the teachers and educators, or is there not one? So it's
Well,
like-
for teachers and educators, there's not. It's purely to assist kids on getting back on track for graduation. In terms, yeah, it's a pure kid benefit. There's no benefit for teachers. I mean, it's all for the kids. So it's just offering if your family couldn't afford to pay for Red Comet or BYU, and let's say you had a lot of things happen to you your freshman, sophomore year, you've gotten really behind on credit. I'm sure there's a lot of good reasons for why, and now you've kind of gotten your life's a lot more stable and we can help you get to graduate on time. It gives that option for you to really kind of accelerate that, right? Because now things are going okay, right? We know a lot of trauma happens to our kiddos, so it provides that ability as well. So
Great.
did that kind of
question.
answer it for you, Nate?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Right, if there's no more questions, we want to say thank you, Marilee and Carl. We appreciate the report.
Thank you.
Next up is our review of policy 3241, student discipline and attendance. And this briefing will be presented by Carrie Helgeson, our Director of Equity and Student Wellbeing. Welcome.
Thank you.
Carrie. We're glad you're here.
I know.
Walking and typing and
Going.
going.
For some reason, it's not letting me share. That's open system settings, so. That causes. Let me try to close it. Correct.
We have it. You guys have it.
You have it? Okay, sure.
It's back.
Oh. So while we're waiting for it to be shared, I'm here to present attendance and discipline data for policy. If you go to the next slide, access to that, policy 3241. But I also have additional data that I thought would be interesting because it's been a talking point all last year and it will be continue to be a talking point this year. And I have shared it with the ACE committee and as well as Silly Valley Health Connections to try to get some additional funding and support for some mental health support. So that data is at the end of the presentation. So the first one is discipline policy 3241. It's a review of data as we do every year and annual sharing with the school board and the ACE committee. Like I said, I've shared this exact same presentation with the ACE committee and Silly Valley Health Connections. And the main points of the policy is just constantly looking at the data to support our students in meeting behavior expectations, at the same time providing a safe environment for all of our students and all of our staff. So kind of walking that fine line of, yes, we believe we need to be in school, but we also need to have a safe environment for all staff and students. So here is the overall district discipline data. So as you can see, the blue bar is 21-22 school year, red is 22-23, and then yellow is last year, 23-24. It's quite obvious that discipline suspensions is on a rise across the board. The only thing that was down was our emergency removal. So emergency removals are those situations that may arise throughout the school year that we just need time to investigate.
So we put students on an emergency removal while we as a team investigate the situation and then make a decision to either as when to bring the student back or what supports need to be added in to help the student be successful at school. In-school suspensions continue to be one of, the most common suspension we use, which is a good thing because our kids are still in school. We can still have access to them. They can still have access to staff. But they're still not in the classroom where they should. And then short term is when kids are out for any length of time between 1 day and 9 days.
When they're in school suspension, where is that? Is that in a classroom or is that in
It's in a classroom and one of the paras oversees that time.
So not with the general population, but they are in the
Right.
school.
Exactly.
With oversight.
So this is last year's data. So this is just all last year. So you can see, blue is in school, red is short term. Yellow, we don't have very many, which is a good thing. That's the long-term suspension. Green is emergency removal. And then the orange, which we only had one, is an expulsion. And that's for a year out of school. So last year, kind of give you an idea, elementary had 5 total suspensions. This year they had 14. Howler had 33. Previous year, this year 38. Post had 108. And then Arlington High School had 214. And Weston had 33. So across the board in all of our buildings, suspensions are on the rise.
And how many more students are in Post than are in Howler? Or is it
About 75 to 80,
that's it?
100-ish, I mean, given.
Because if you look at percentage wise, that's pretty high.
But Post also houses our EBD program and some other special programs there.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not apples to apples.
Do we have any data on kind of recidivism, I guess would be the word, like how many, is it the same kids doing multiple things? Is it
I
a
do.
bunch of different, okay,
I have a little bit of that.
okay, perfect.
Yeah. So
Carrie,
couple
Can you
more
also-
slides.
can
Okay,
you also explain how Howler and Post differ in their process for deciding? Because I know Howler has another step that they use.
Yeah, so sometimes, there could be a number of reasons why Howler uses another step where they may have a, like a detention kind of thing. There's more space at Howler, more accessible, extra room there to be able to house that. There's also new leadership at Howler this past year, both assistant principal and principal. I think Post gets to the point that they just lose space in order to place kids safely, right? So having some additional certain number of kids in a room together causes problems.
For sure.
There are a lot, when I go into Howler, there are 3 empty kind of rooms that they could put kids into compared to Post in the office, and then compared to Post, not really having those extra rooms.
So that would be equivalent to like something like an ISS.
Yeah.
In schools.
Is there a question?
We were talking about, go ahead.
yeah, so I was just because there's no space at one school, we're short-term suspending kids.
Yeah.
Which has a negative impact on them. I'm just curious if we could find a solution rather than suspending them out of school. And space not necessarily being an
barrier, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's one thing that's on my list of to-dos this year is to build that MTSS model for discipline. And working with all of the assistant principals across our secondary schools. Elementary, they do a pretty good job, those elementary suspensions they've done a lot of interventions prior to suspending. But working across the system with all of our assistant principals at our secondary levels to build the MTSS, which I have some things in place. And we've had conversation last year, but now it's time to start implementing some of those things. Sure. But yes, I agree.
How long is a short term versus?
It could be, long-term is 10 days, short-term could be 1 day, could be 5 days.
Okay.
There's a pretty big range. And depending on the incident and if it's repetitive behavior, determines how many days that they're suspended. So here's your disciplinary incidents by student group, just because we like to monitor disproportionality. So across our system here. And then I have another slide that I think will be more telling, so can you go to the next slide? So this gives you that first column there is the number of secondary students. So our American Indian, Alaska Native, we have 37 students. Secondary, so middle high school, Asian 48, and you can see that first column, the number of incidents that of those 37 American Indian, Alaska Native students, 21 of those discipline incidents was caused from them, 5 from the Asian. See that column? The next column, we did percentages. So our Alaskan Indian, American Indian, Alaska Native students comprise of 1.1% of our secondary students.
Right.
Our Asian 1.5%, Black African American 1%, and then we look at the percent of the incidents. So what we're looking at is trying to see that it's not a big difference between the percent of secondary students that we have in that group compared to the percent of the discipline incidents that are being caused. When it's a small number, it's hard to get it perfect, because if we know is our data is our number to get the in size increases, our data is more accurate. So
It's interesting looking like the Hispanics who they make up 18.2% of the population, but they're 10% of the incidents. So that's like that's interesting.
that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Right, yeah. So last year, so this year, as I look at this, I think, okay, well. Our American Indian Alaska had more incidents than what we, that percentage is a little off, but then we only have 37 students in that subgroup. So it's hard to get it exact. Our multiracial, that's quite a few students. That's a little off concerning. So is this a trend? Last year, it was our white students that was actually off. And so this is something just to monitor to make sure that this data doesn't continue that disproportionality with our multiracial is every year.
Right.
How do you decide if certain kids started an incident or caused an incident?
How do we what?
Like determine whether it was like a white student who caused an incident?
It's by suspensions. So when I get a suspension from a school, then
Just whatever.
So types of infractions, so students get suspended for a number of things, and this is exactly the same as last year. Our fighting, our marijuana, and our nicotine are our highest 3 things that the kids are getting suspended for. Last year, just to give you an idea, we had 63 incidents that were fighting. With kids getting caught with marijuana, we had 41. And with nicotine, we had 62. So those 2 are definitely, and these are, just what we catch, right? And so,
Harry, can you explain what insubordination would look like for a suspension? Why would a kid be?
argument, like it just being blatantly, well, Nate might be able to give you an example of a student in class that would be insubordinate.
Come on, insubordinate.
Show us.
Tell me what to do.
And it doesn't stop, right? When the teacher intervenes, it doesn't stop, it keeps going and it interrupts the whole classroom.
Interesting, the alcohol's not there.
It used to be.
It's just a small number. We do have a little bit of alcohol, but I would say it's 3 or 4. One conversation we had today, Sherry and Chris and I, is that our youth are not drinking alcohol anymore, they're smoking marijuana. It's not as common, well, they do, but it's not as common as when, at school. Yeah, but that's true with marijuana too.
Just another quick question,
Yeah.
sorry, with nicotine and the marijuana, if they are suspended, is there any kind of referral for substance use?
So that's what we're working on
Okay.
this year, yeah. Exactly, so that alternative to suspension is going to be a big piece of our conversation around with assistant principals. What can we do in lieu of that? How are we educating our youth, especially our 5th graders and our middle schoolers prior to getting to this point in high school? And then what do we have to offer instead of just an automatic suspension? Changing mindset, getting buy-in and offering different programs.
I think Carrie also too, what we talked about is parental buy-in, like educating parents is also part of it. That's like,
Yeah.
You're seeing behaviors that are replicating what's in an environment as well. So that's. another
Well,
part
when
of
we
it.
have a first grader bringing a vape device. And showing the other kids how to use it.
Show and tell should not include it. Can you explain this?
So are you limiting what they want to share? No, just kidding.
Something should not be shared. Skipping class, are we suspending kids for skipping class? It seems.
That would be an in-school suspension.
Okay.
So you've skipped this class however many times, now you get to go to in-school and do the work that you've missed because you keep skipping. There's no out of
we-
school.
We are basically rewarding them for skipping class by giving them a place to skip class. Yes,
They're still in the building though.
They're still in the
Just-
building.
Usually they're.
but
And
they're
it's
getting
more-
away from whatever they're skipping.
They're getting away
It feels
from
like
the class,
positive
but
reinforcement.
the
But they're
work.
doing their schoolwork in another location.
I can,
Zachary would totally take advantage of that.
I got two tardies in my first period because I was late in my 0 period class, so I just ended up being tardy. And I did have an in-school suspension for that class, and it sucks. You don't
That
wanna
is
go.
scandalous for a student advisor.
I know.
It's really.
We're on the street.
We're on the street. You didn't-
Don't do it. Did you learn from that?
So did you never want to be late again?
Well, it's, in my case, it was special, but it definitely, I never want to go back there, of course. I mean, it was
Never want
just
to go
like,
back to class or never want to go back to school?
in school.
You never go want to get
The-
that.
the room that I had.
The room.
Yeah.
Shame.
Make it really miserable in there.
The shame room?
No windows.
Which is like, it's really quiet and you don't get to sit with your friends and you don't get to ask questions. And that's a big part for me is I ask a lot of questions at my work. So that
So
was.
you don't get that teacher support
I
to
don't
do the work. Yeah.
But I imagine if someone is continuing skipping class, they're not asking questions anyways.
Right.
So.
We find that some of our students in the bathrooms skipping class. So,
With babes.
exactly. Double whammy.
So in the skipping class portion, would that count, would tardies count towards that, or is that just skipping the entire class period?
That, it varies. So sometimes it's 5 minutes late, sometimes it's 30 minutes late.
They'll talk to you too.
Yeah.
That's great.
And this isn't automatic. I think you get a few warnings prior to getting to this. So,
Carrie, can I ask what the difference is between disrespect and insubordination?
well, in one person's mind, it's disrespect, and the other person's mind,
What
it's
would they be?
insubordination.
Wouldn't that be
I think
the same category and?
Yeah, but these are all discipline codes we have from the state.
I think insubordination would be more about not following directions.
Well, and I think it's
like
more
you're
in your face.
Yeah.
Like you continually disrespect, you could have thrown something across the room. Pulled somebody's chair out, lots of things that could have happened. So Matt, back to your question. So about 300 students account for the 575 discipline incidents. So most kids get one suspension. We have a number of kids that are repeat offenders. So then the conversation goes, what do they need, right?
Yeah, are they
Yeah.
being identified?
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, overall discipline numbers are higher than last year. We talked about the highest fraction in school suspensions, and then I talked about the disproportionality. So I have more discipline stuff, but it'll come at a later presentation. Any questions on just what was shared here? So next part is attendance. So this one, if you take the decimals and you round them to, and you get a percentage, this is just how the graph showed up, as a decimal point instead of percentage points. But you can see each school in its own color. So Weston High School was almost at a 70%, which is actually pretty good for Weston. I think last year they were in the 50s. So they did a really big attendance push. Tracy Van Beek calls every single family every time they're absent to really try to get them re-engaged in school. They monitor their attendance data on a weekly basis. Arlington High School, 86%, Post Middle School and Howler are really close to each other. I mean, they're almost like identical. And then across the board, our elementaries are all around between about a 90%. They are 90% to 93%. And then overall, Arlington School District is 89, about an 89. This looks good,
I was gonna ask.
but then I'm gonna share some.
Okay.
So if we break down by each building, the number of students that have between, how many absences they have. Okay, so just at President's Elementary, and this includes excused and unexcused, because parents at elementary excuse everything. Because it's educating our parents, our elementary parents, and that's a big focus for elementary assistant principals this coming year, which I'll talk about. But we had 39 students at President's that had between 20 and 30 absences. We call chronic absence 18 or more, because that is an average of 2 absences a month. So 39 students had between 20 and 30. 17 students had between 30 and 40 absences. 3 kids had between 40 and 50. And 3 students had 50 or more. Those 3 students, they could have had 100 absences, and we have one of those. So when we look at our academic data, and then we look at the attendance data, there's got to definitely be a correlation between how many absences there are and how, if they're not there, they can't learn.
Do we have a Becca coordinator in the district?
Well, that's me.
Okay. Sorry, I should
But-
have that,
Which I'll talk
but,
about.
okay.
Does this include the ECAP or the
Mm.
preschool?
No,
No,
this is
okay.
just K-12 or K-5 here. For President's, yeah. Eagle Creek, you'll see about the same trend across all of our elementary buildings. There are just a lot of students that have chronic absence. So 67, 75.
It'd be interesting with the grades. I'd be curious what the.
It's across the board,
Yeah.
really, yeah. Or what their, what grade level.
What grades have the most absences?
Oh,
Yeah, I haven't been able to pinpoint, definitely kindergarten.
Yeah, they're very fluid.
Yeah.
I know, where was it, statistic, something about, educating parents on like between what are K and 3, that is a predictor of even
Yeah.
reading and, yep,
Yep.
K and 2, yeah, K to 2.
And
And I
not
just,
at grade level in reading. but
I would
they're
love to
grade
have
level.
that day one with my parents. I mean, I don't necessarily meet parents on the first day of school, but some kind of blurb that first week, like, please bring your kids to
Oh,
school.
I have that for you.
Yeah,
That we send out, yeah.
yeah, thank you. I'll just, please bring.
So this is so Eagle Creek. Ahead here
Yeah, that was similar to. Pine.
is 11% of their students have at least 20 absences.
Wow.
So 1 in 10. So if you think about it in that regard, that's a lot of kids, right?
Were you able to maybe kind of disaggregate like students who are out every week for appointments that they need outside of school, like medical or
Mhm.
anything like that?
We have that,
Sure,
but what
okay, it's not
those
big.
aren't those kids
Okay.
because they're not out 30 days. You know,
Right.
some of our students in life skills program at Pioneer,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, they're out because they've got some severe medical issues. They
Right.
have to go down to Children's for the day or whatever,
Mhm.
but that's not these.
Okay.
kids. Yeah. It'd
Thank
be
you.
easier to
It's helping
say.
me to,
Yeah, I
yeah.
know. Camp Prairie, you're gonna see the same trend across the board. 15% of their students have more than 20 absences. Pioneer, 12% of their students. So then, or Stilly Valley, and this is 4%, but you know, they have a different model. They're there 3 days. It's easier to be there, I guess, 3 days than 5 days. So there's that, you know, coming, and parents are there and part of it. Right. So Howler, so at the middle school, I decided, well, let's just track unexcused absences because that would maybe be more likely at when we start to get to secondary. So at first I just tracked the unexcused, which is blue, and I'm like, well, that's really good. But that's not what I'm seeing. So then I pulled the excused absences also, so that's the red. So the red would be the excused and unexcused absences. So parents are still just excusing kids for not being at school. At Howler, this is 20% of their students, 1 in 5 have more than 20 absences. Post, same idea, this is 18% of their students. And then Arlington High School, I only pulled unexcused. This graph would not be big enough to pull the excused and unexcused. But this is 7%, and that's just unexcused only. So if we included the excused absences in here, it would be really high. What's concerning is that the 50 plus or even the 40 to more, 50,
50.
that's, a third of the school year could be that they're missing school.
I'd be curious to it'd be interesting to see a trend. So I would guess that as our absences have gone up, that you would also see scores, like we're talking academics, there's
There's gotta be a direct.
got a correlation, yeah. And I think that's why I would say I would impress upon the parents, like, when they're here, we learn, just even being in my room makes a difference.
What I'm finding when I am in parent meetings with the truancy things is they throw up their hands. I mean, they're at their wits' end. I mean, a lot with the elementary world, we're parenting the parent.
Yeah.
To be able to get them to school. It's really, some of them, it's a friendship. I want them at home with me. I like to have them there. I can't tell them no. And so it's a lot of it is parenting the parent in the meetings. And then some of the, at the high school level, they're bigger than that, right? It's bigger than the mom. And so she's like, I don't know what I can do.
So I also do want to just kind of address, like, this isn't nationwide.
Oh, yeah, this isn't an
Absences,
Arlington,
You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like, this is
It's all
pandemic
localized,
stuff,
yes,
like
right,
residual from the pandemic.
yeah, for sure.
So are these students who are missing a third the year of school not being held back? Like, how are they still passing their classes?
We don't retain kids. They may not graduate, right? They may not get a diploma. Because they won't have the credits to graduate.
Research shows that if you
Retention.
retain kids, they will drop out.
And it has more
Or the more.
mental
likely-
health, mental issues than keeping them going.
Did you notice any trends between freshmen versus juniors versus seniors or anything like that? And then do we have any data about free and reduced poverty level and
I don't
attendance?
get
Is
that
there-
data. I can't.
You can't
that-
know that.
yeah.
I'd be curious.
Yeah, that's a good question, for sure. Then Weston, this is 11%, so it doesn't look like very many, but remember, they're small. So
Small
this is still,
population.
so across our buildings, we've had at least 10% of our students that have more than 20 absences.
But not
Seem to
20
make a difference, like
No,
some
not
of the
at all.
elementary schools have had free lunch, like for all students this year, but I didn't notice a difference in attendance.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So,
So then we looked at, just to see if one of our federal race groups are missing school more often than another. And really you can see that other than our Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander and our American Indian, Native Alaskan, they're all right at about 60%. And those two groups are really close to 60%. So I don't really see a big trend here as far as, is there a reason why based on our federal race group. So overall, our attendance percentage about the same as last year, but we still are struggling with those 10% of students that really have chronic absence. So what can we do to re-engage students back into school, but also to educate our families on the importance of school at elementary? So we have, go ahead. So next steps, we continue to think outside the box to try to put supports in place to re-engage kids. Remind families about the importance of regular school attendance. I worked last year with all of the elementary assistant principals, and we put together a pretty comprehensive attendance plan, which we're going to start this year. And really getting back to pre-COVID and pandemic of giving awards for kids that are there, and educating our parents and sending those reminders about attendance. Having meetings at the building level and discussing barriers, what can we do to support you? A lot of, a couple of these meetings I was in, like I said, we were educating the parent of a first grader on, you can say no to your child to not stay home. It is okay. They will kick and scream. for a couple days, but I promise you, we will call you if there's a big issue, and so really trying to drill that home. Community Engagement Board and Truancy Court, that's part of the Becca law. So the first step is we file truancy paperwork on a student. And then we can file it as a stay, and then the Community Engagement Board is that next step. And that's where we call in, I call in some other community members, or if it's a high schooler that could benefit from like Snow Isle, I'll have Brian Long there, just have those conversations with families. So depending on the student, depends on who's at the table. And having those parent meetings, those are really telling as far as what the family is struggling with at home around their own possible mental health, about their struggles with trying to get their student out of bed. And there's a lot of things that are going on with families when they get to that community engagement board. We have taken a few families to truancy court, but we have found that really nothing comes of that. And it backfires a little bit to us because the student is sitting there at truancy court and the judge isn't making them come to school, right? And so now they're sitting there hearing that the judge isn't gonna do anything, so now I'm never gonna go. So we've decided this year to file the truancy, put it as a stay, have those meetings, but have those ongoing meetings with families instead of just taking them to truancy court because it doesn't have any impact.
I was gonna ask a question too. I was wondering, and I don't know if this is a violation of any laws, but for Skyward, when I look at the kids, so I get this, so I'm doing first grade this year. I get this list of kiddos. It would help me to see kids who might be flagged for attendance issues. And then I can just immediately go into like, okay, I got my top 3 that I need to like pay attention to and then maybe celebrate like, oh my gosh, it's so great that you're here today, and send a note home to mom like, oh, tomorrow's awards day, don't forget awards. So
Yeah, no, that's not
You can see past year's attendance records.
I don't know if the
Skyward.
teachers can in
Mm,
Skyward,
I don't
but I
think I-
know that the administrators can, so you can get that information. So that's part of our attendance plan this year is we already have a list at each building as far as those students that were the frequent flyers for attendance last year.
yeah,
We're going to already be
I would
nudging
love
those
to,
families.
yeah, I will talk to my administrator about that. I think that would be very helpful. In kindergarten, you don't have that, right? You're the first level.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other grades would benefit.
No, it's really important. So.
She's like,
Yeah, I'm not done. I'm just full of positives here. So that's the discipline attendance. The next part is the information that I shared with the ACE committee and Stille Valley Health Connections. This part is around student well-being and anxiety. Remember, we had the mental health attendance code that was in place last year. I shared that data. I'll continue to monitor that data with you, but here's kind of a snapshot, and then this is as of May. So elementary attendance data, so total number, so this is students that have used that mental health absence code at some point in the year, okay? So number of students with 5 or fewer excused absences with the mental health absence code, and then total number of students using the mental health with more than 5 excused absences. The reason we monitor it this way is because this could be telling as far as there's a student that we don't know about in our system that needs some additional support. We need a counselor to reach out, we need a principal to reach out, we need the teacher to reach out to kind of figure out what's going on. So we only had 1 elementary student, and that was at SVLC, that had more than 5 absences with that mental health attendance code.
Mm.
Here's your middle school data. So really what we're seeing is a lot of students use maybe 1 or 2, but not a lot that are out for more than 5 days. But what we know with mental health, that they actually use that attendance code. And then here's your high school. That's 10 is, that's a 25, or the 28 with Weston is 1/4 of their students. That's why it's really pushing having them full-time mental health counselor there.
Yeah.
Okay, so then here's some healthy youth survey data, some more sobering data for you. During the past, so this was given to 6th grade is the first column, 8th grade is the middle, and 10th grade is the right-hand column. So during the past 12 months, did you ever feel so sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more in a row that you stopped doing some usual activities? So this question wasn't asked of 6th graders, that's why there's no data there. But if we look at our 8th graders that said yes, That's 95 students out of 339 is the end size. You can see the end size at the top. And of our 10th graders, that's 93 students. Out of 283. 1 in 3. Next question, during the past 12 months, did you ever seriously consider attempting suicide? 8th graders, that's 64 students. And our 10th graders, that's 55. But during the past 12 months, how many times did you actually attempt suicide? So our 8th graders, 10 kids had 1 time. And 7 kids had between 2 and 3 times. 10th graders, 9 kids had 1 time. 3 kids had 2 to 3, 1 kid 4 to 5, and 1 kid 6. And then here's what the 2 questions are that 6th graders were asked. So that question 142, ever seriously thought about killing yourself? That's 82 students. And then have you ever tried to kill yourself? That's 22 kids. So this is and this isn't just an Arlington thing, this is a pandemic,
And 6th graders are 11 and 12.
they're babies, and this is October. So they just started middle school. So next question, when you feel sad or hopeless, are there adults that you can turn to for help? So my concern is the no's there. Our 8th graders, 18 students do not feel they have anyone they could talk to. And our 10th graders, 27 students. And then you can see here, that's why there's a push to educate our peers and friends, because most students will talk to, or they'll talk to the parent. Their next one is their friend or peer. So really educating our youth as far as how do you respond to a friend or a peer that comes to you in crisis.
Or even if you're someone who sees someone in crisis.
Yes.
Because I think that's what I've heard is like, girls are cutting and then you see this at the locker room and then you're not saying anything about it. Like educating, like help,
How do you
say, see something, say
something?
something.
Yeah. Even if it's just telling an adult.
Tell an adult.
So here's what our, this is what we have this coming year for our mental health counselors, and these are all funded except for our Weston High School mental health counselor through hospital district. Art Schmier is big supporter of, getting more mental health counselor support. Patty Putnam she's been in our building, in our district for 6 or 7 years. They're always looking for other mental health counselors out there that they could pull into the school even 1 day a week. I just found out right before this meeting that we also have an intern at President's working with Nancy Murphy, who's there, so that adds another person there.
So 2 people for the 1 day? Or
2
days?
people, so they'll probably be there the same day.
Right, but you have 2 people
2
to
people,
attend.
yeah.
Yeah.
This 1 day a week, they can see 6 kids, because we allot about 45 minutes to an hour per student, so that there's a big chunk of time for them to build relationships and to really dig deep into what's going on. So is there more of a need for more mental health counselors? Obviously, yes, because we have a lot of students that aren't getting help here. And that's where our SSAs come in a little bit, as far as our student support advocates being able to go out into the community and to try to find some counseling for those students that aren't getting seen in the building.
And these are our contractual agreements with like Evergreen and
This,
stuff like that.
these are just what you approved in the
Yeah,
consent
okay, yeah,
agenda
that's what I
with the
mean.
Spilly Valley Health
Evergreen
Connections,
is-
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I'd
Through
be,
grants, and these are through grants.
Yeah.
really? Okay.
And Artis writes those. She does with the hospital district. So as you heard last June or May, I can't remember, our student advisory council was here. Our students that are part of that presenting that their goal was around mental health. And I just wanted to recap a little bit about what each focus group and what their ideas are. These ideas will probably change when we meet with them in September, because there's students that left and there's more, and we're adding middle schoolers into this group. We have 31 on student advisory council this year. So it's a pretty big group from ages 6 through 12th grade. So navigating that a little bit, but this group wants to go down and meet with 5th graders and just educate them around what mental health is. It's not taboo, you know, it's something to talk about and have that open conversation. Group 2, they're wanting to gather topics about the following topics for students. So having like a resource board in the school somewhere, create pamphlets. We had a lot of conversation around the suicide hotline in the back of the ASB card. That's on the front right now, but it was $65 additional per card. So we're gonna work,
Are you serious?
yeah, we're gonna work with trying to get a grant to be able to pay for that.
$65. That's more than the A's, or the A's.
I know, so does the, because of the printer, like, do we print our own?
We
IDs
don't
or-
print anything on the back. So
Right.
we have to do dual prints.
Oh.
So that's where they charge you. Cause you
But
don't
what I'm
print on
saying
the
is like,
front.
do we not have our own printer that we print?
No,
We
it's like
outsource it?
furniture.
That's why, so I thought we did it on our own.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is something we're gonna work with this year, is trying to get a grant or some money to pay for that.
I'm sorry, explain to me again. So what does the card have? What would that other side of the card do again?
Well, right now, the ASB card, it's really small writing on the front.
Yeah,
5'7".
And so, if we did it on the back and had the QR code for additional resources,
Oh,
then
okay.
it would be easy.
oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, I think.
So tight.
Oh, you need the barcode and that would be on.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's
yeah.
Can you even read that little thing where it says 988?
Where's
Well,
988? Oh, need a crisis lifeline. Yeah,
Yeah.
whoa, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not
but
the
there's so
generation that
many
needs to worry
times.
about that. He can read it, that's all that matters. But yeah, I see putting the QR code.
But, or even knowing it's there, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. And I've seen too, the back of the bathroom stalls, they have that whole, like,
Yeah.
I mean, you just take your camera,
Yeah.
assuming you have cell phones.
Right.
Sure, now we go.
It's a whole nother conversation, we're not for tonight. And then, this group is gonna do some work as far as they were really struggling with trying to, how do we let teachers know that I'm needing support without having my peers also know? So that's what this group is kind of really struggling with, how do I let them know without being overheard by a peer? So some way of, you know, not a nonverbal indicator. So it's not gonna be happening in September after the first weeks. They're still working through that a little bit. Okay. All right, so community supports, got some things going there. Like I said, my connection was Silly Valley Health Connections, and they're really, that's why they wanted, so Erica Coghill's on the ACE committee. She heard the same presentation. She invited me to go talk to her staff around the urgency of our needing supports and resources for our mental health with kids. Working with them, and then just, you know, open to how else can we support kids that are struggling? There, one more section. All right, so this is around vaping, learning more about the problem, strengthening families. It's one of the requests from the ACE committee for me to share a little bit about. So I have some healthy use survey just to learn a little bit about what's going on. So again, grade 6, 8, 10, smoking cigarettes, our kids aren't doing that. Some of our curriculum that we're educating is still about smoking cigarettes. We need to update that. So that's something we're working on. Many of our kids aren't doing chewing tobacco, or if they are, you know, there's like toothpicks now and pouches. We'll never catch that. Cigars, little cigars. So on how many days, I mean, a lot of kids were like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
So on how many days did you use an electric cigarette in the past 30 days? How many days did you use an electric cigarette? 8, 10. So you can see 6th grade is 8 kids, 8th grade is 16, and 10th grade is 39. Our suspension data shows a different story than what our kids are saying.
How would they admit to it?
It's anonymous.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna get dinged.
Yeah.
But not all kids do the healthy use survey.
Not all kids, so we had a fair number. I mean, 8th grade, we had 347.
And 9th graders and 11th.
10th graders, we had 288 plus. Yeah, so they,
So it's not every single grade.
yeah, right. Yeah, but we have more kids. So here's your alcohol map. On how many days did you drink a glass, can of bottle or can or bottle of alcohol? And then the marijuana is at the bottom. Our suspension data shares the difference. So that's where I just wanted to bring that to light. Getting our kids to, one, like Nate said, why would I say I did? One, it's anonymous, but really, you can't fix the problem unless you're gonna admit that it's a problem. How do we get more education for our kids? It's definitely what I'm seeing. So this is just a snapshot from, remember I talked about Whatcom County, this is Tammy D, this is part of the report that she gave to buildings. So our exclusionary discipline procedure, so you can see, that 17% of our administrators will give up to a 1-day short-term suspension on first offense for alcohol. 1 to 2 days, 33%, and 3 or more days, first offense, 50% of our administrators. And then you can see the data from there. The parents are wanting stricter across, for the most part, our parents are wanting stricter consequences, more suspensions for kids getting caught with substances. So not only,
For their kids or for other kids?
well, that's not a question,
For
right?
everybody, I mean, just, yeah.
Just
everybody.
across the board, that was just a general question.
Okay.
Interesting.
And then which parents answered, I mean, right, did the survey too, so that's what we don't know. So Cascadia Youth's recommendations and Tammy D and I are meeting one day this week about how she can still support building that MTSS model, doing those alternatives to suspensions. What are some alternative ideas? What are some good education pieces out there? You know, there's a lot of free resources, but we don't want just one free resource. We want the best free resource. So what is that? What is that? And so she's going to help me with that. And then also one thing that came out that I think was interesting. Might be on the next page. No, back. Oh, no, go on. Keep going. One forward. So what support is needed for students that have become addicted to vaping? And then, but also what professional development is needed for our staff to recognize, is it an addiction problem or is it a mental health? So are students vaping because they're covering up the mental health problem? Or are they just vaping because that's what the cool thing to do? So because the withdrawal and the mimics an anxiety. And if our students had a vape in the morning, but then about noon, they haven't had that, and then you start to have some anxiety and some symptoms around it. So educating, especially our school counselors and maybe our student support advocates around what does that look like. Screenagers is a new, something that artists and I worked on bringing to our 5th graders and our middle schools this coming year. And it's really about an education piece around mental health and substance use. And then I've connected with United General Hospital in Skagit County, and they're doing a peer-to-peer training where we're looking to send our student advisory council kids to an all-day training about how to respond to peers or their friends in crisis.
And paid for by.
And it's paid for, everything, all expenses paid. And it's a full day at the ESD in Anacortes on just that peer-to-peer training. So working with them on that.
Gary, I noticed we haven't mentioned anything like fentanyl and some of these catastrophic drugs, which, I mean, maybe I'm happy not to see that, but it would be not truthful to know that that's a part of our community as well, because I think we had a Lakewood student that, yeah, experienced that. So just, I mean, and the other thing I was wondering, we were talking about things like alcohol and nicotine and marijuana. I'm thinking, I was just, when we were talking right now, is thinking of the very nature of that substance also is, I think, of a mindset that you're going into it. I'm thinking that years ago when cigarettes were popular, it was kind of like the cool thing to do. You did it as a group.
Yeah.
Maybe marijuana is like that as well, but then you have vaping, like, it's just,
The problem is that what we have found with our healthy use survey data is that kids are trying, middle school mainly, kids that first tried to vape, they had no idea what was in that vape device. So you could have had fentanyl in there, which would have, been deadly, right?
Yep.
So kids are trying it without even knowing what's in there.
Yep.
So
Just
we
that-
assume that it's nicotine or we assume it's marijuana, but there could be other things added into that,
Yeah, that's the scary.
into the juice.
But I was just thinking about even the culture, like when you're talking about assessing where kids are. And like, it felt like, I feel myself, I'll just claim myself. I feel like I understand alcohol, like you're either doing something very solitary or you're a bunch of friends. But I don't know today where these kids are at in their heads, because to me, it's probably something TikTok-y, like, oh, let's do this, or, yeah, I don't know. You two
I
can
think it's
chime in,
across
but
the board. I think there's a number
there's a
of kids
range
that
of,
are-
yeah,
For sure.
probably like always, just
Yeah.
it's a substance.
Some are using it as a recreational weekend kind
Mhm.
of thing with a group, and some are using it to cope through the day.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
So,
I know that was a lot of heavy
That's a
data,
lot.
but it's also where we're at with our youth and thinking about what supports are out there and how can we.
as the Snohomish County Youth Suicide Prevention Task Force, I know that Artis is on there. Have they been any,
I'm not sure.
they
I haven't
provided
heard
any
that.
resources?
I don't know.
Okay.
And then we are starting up an Arlington Coalition.
Okay.
So that's gonna consist
That's
of
focused on
community members and
substance.
kids.
Okay.
We just have a planning meeting coming
Yeah.
up in September, a half-day plan.
Sarah Higginbotham of it, still
Yeah.
is leading that charge. So if you want to be on that, let me know.
Pass on your name. Yes, please.
Yeah. Sarah's meeting
Thank you, Carrie.
down, gonna be down over there.
A lot of heavy topics, but a lot of good work. Thank you, Carrie. We appreciate everything you do to help our kids be successful and healthy. Next up is our second reading and adoption of Board Policy 2090 program evaluation. And we'd like to welcome the other Carrie, Carrie Henderson Burke, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, and
Thank you. Yeah, you're number one.
the Carries are so nice, Carrie.
Good news is this is shockingly easy compared to what you just processed, right? This is our second read of our program evaluation, and the changes that were suggested are really minimal. There was a paragraph that was moved from bottom to top. You can see the wording changes, no substantive shift in meaning or intent, just a little updating. Last time we didn't have any questions, and I'm sure we haven't. Did any emerge over the last 2 weeks?
And I just want to remind everybody that this is a student advisor vote, so we will ask our student advisors to weigh in. I hear zero concerns or questions or amendments. So I would like to ask our student advisors how they would vote on this policy. Would they approve it with the changes made? So Deja, go ahead. Tell us yes or no.
I would approve it with the changes.
I do would approve.
Thank you, Nathan. And then this is an action item, as this is our second reading, so we would entertain a motion to approve Board Policy 2090 program.
Motion to approve, board policy 2090.
I'll second. It's been moved by Director Diamond and seconded by Director Knapp to approve Board Policy 2090 program evaluation.
Director Diamond,
All right.
Director Kelly,
I,
Director Watts,
Aye.
President Livette,
Aye.
Director Neal.
Aye. That policy is approved. Thank you. Next up is our second reading and adoption of Board Policy 5411, staff vacation. And we'll have our Superintendent Sweeting.
Yes, I'm gonna stand in for Eric DeYoung. This is second reading, first reading. There were no suggested changes requested. It is about just aligning what we currently have in our contracts about vacation, how you accumulate that and how you can use it. So it's just adjusting the numbers there. So pretty simple.
Are there any suggested changes? Also, this is another one of our student advisor votes, so we're hoping our students will weigh in. Deja, how would you vote for this?
I would vote to approve it.
I do vote.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Deja. Thank you for all of your good conversations at our meetings and comments, and suggestions. It's very helpful. Do we have a motion to approve policy 5411 staff vacation?
I make a motion, we approve second reading and adoption of board policy 5411 for staff vacations.
A second. It's been moved by Director Kelly and seconded by Director Watts to approve 5411 staff vacation.
Director Diamond,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Director Watts,
I,
President Vivek,
Aye.
Director Nair.
Aye. Thank you. That policy is approved. Next up is our informational items, and we'll start with our superintendent's report.
Good evening. I will say that we continue to bargaining efforts are continuing with groups, and so we're looking forward to a good week continuing and to have resolution and contracts, But fourth, tomorrow begins 3 days of professional development for certificated staff, with the Wednesday, the 20th, being a district day. So what that means is all staff in the morning will be at the VPAC. We have a student panel, which 2 of our student advisors will be on the panel. And we also have our band that's going to be playing music on that. And we're going to introduce our new staff. It's going to be awesome. And a staff picture like we usually do. Thank you, Director Sable. And then there'll be staff will go and have lunch on their own, but then come back to different sites, Arlington High School, Howler, and Presidents, to engage in some culturally responsive professional development. And it's really focused on the sense of belonging and developing those connections, positive connections between staff and students. The first day of school is September 4th and quickly approaching. So that's what I have to share. Thank you.
Next up is our legislative update and discussion. Director Kelly.
Yeah, so I attended a Zoom meeting last week. It was just a one-way communication, OSPI rulemaking activity. And so I printed off, basically the legislature puts together these bills, and then OSPI, it's called like a pre-proposal statement of inquiry. So they put together thoughts on what changes do we need to make now that the legislature's made this? And then this is like an open period when you can provide feedback on that. I won't belabor a bunch of them, but a couple of them, I know Gina had talked about different monies. They talked about district budgeting, binding conditions. So the legislature put this together in 2023. OSPI is considering rulemaking to implement an exemption for school districts and charter schools for 24, 25, and 25, 26 budget periods from accepting binding conditions when the proceeds of an interfund loan have been used to balance deficit fund balances. So that's recognized. I think that's something, it perked me up. It's like, oh, Gina's been talking about that. And then you brought that question up today. Another thing I thought was interesting, they're considering, and you can provide feedback. You can go on that OSPA website and provide feedback. Child nutrition, 20-minute seated lunchtime. I'm all for that. Yay, 20 minutes of sitting and eating. They're talking about better aligning with the state auditor's performance audit results, leading research, and national best practices by requiring a minimum seated lunchtime of 20 minutes K through 12. So other thing, highly capable, they're looking at that concerning universal screening to identify students needing highly capable services, including focusing on equitable identification of low-income and underserved students. So these kind of be hot buttons for us because I think we are very much with that equity lens. And another last one, I'll continue to bore you with government legislative, school construction assistance program. This is Brian's perking up. I can see that. The space allocations are outdated and do not meet the space needs of local school districts for current educational programs offered to students. The proposed update rule will phase in increases to the current space allocations to help meet the space needs of providing current educational opportunities to students. Hear, hear. And then another whack that goes with that one is the proposed update will allow the superintendent to set the construction cost allocation to reflect current market conditions. So here to Mr. Ragdale. So anyway, it was interesting. This was just all presented, but you can go on, you can even have them, they have an option to email when this page is updated. So that's a little more than I have time for, but it's good to see that movement and understanding that OSPI, there was some talk, I think, of them going under the legislation, under the legislative branch. And I think that would be highly problematic. So I continue to support them being their own entity. And yeah, I feel like at least with the person in charge right now, there's an ear. And I feel like OSPI is very aligned with the schools. So, you know, if something's going on, that's kind of a go-to for us. In addition to we have legislators, but anyway, it was worth my time. So, thank you.
Thank you. And you also sent us something.
Yes.
To review.
Yes, what's the big packet to review is our ledge sessions coming up. I will be attending the 2 days. So all the proposals, all the resolutions, the packet to look over. If there's, I think Debbie did an awesome job. Thank you, Debbie, by the way, for breaking that down in different categories. If there's something that particularly relates to you or interests you, if you're like, oh, I'm really focusing on special ed or highly capable or school funding, it's in there. And so you can certainly send me an email, and if we have something that that you want me to pay special attention to.
Yeah, it's good if they email me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. That's the protocol. Yes, email Dr. Sweeting, and then we'll kind of go from there. And that'll be about the 3rd week of September.
Thank you, right. Thank you, Director Kelly. Next up is our comments from our board members, and I'd like to start with our student advisors first. Deja, would you like to share anything?
I don't think I have anything at this time.
You're Nathan?
Yeah, I think this is one of our last meetings before school starts, or the last.
Yep.
So
Yep.
happy first day. I don't see you guys for that. Not happy, it says. I, for one, am very excited to finally be a leader in my school as a senior. But other than that, I have a lot of questions about highly capable and different programs in the district, and how we can improve them and what exactly we do for our students, and more importantly, why do it, because I feel like there's a lot of holes right now. So I just have a lot of thoughts going on in my head. Yeah, I'll get back to you on that. And anything.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Deja. Next, Director Knapp.
I'm excited to go to District Day that Wednesday.
Yes.
I've never attended that, so, yeah, my kids are kind of old enough where I don't need to be monitoring them every second of the day or have them in school if I'm not monitoring them. So, yeah, it's exciting, and the band will be there, and so, and then looking forward to school starting after that. I'm at the point now in the summer where it's like, okay, summer's ending, time for all of us to go back to school and work.
Director Diamond, anything you'd like to share?
No real comments. Not excited for the start of school. Wish I had another couple more weeks. I'm intrigued by the kind of the mental health report that we got. Kind of a lot to chew on. I'm curious just kind of how we can get more engaged in community programs and get the community involved in our schools. Yeah, just kind of pondering that right now.
Director Kelly, anything else you'd like to add?
I too have certain reservations about the first day of school. Just that anxiety, you're the other side of it. I have to prepare for people like you. So, I know
People like you.
like students, no, it's that toss up between anxiety and excitement, you know, it all meshes and it all shows up, but I'm looking forward to a good year, and I feel really solid about our staffing here at Arlington. I feel like we have really great intentions, and I think we'll weather the storm on a budget level, and we'll just stay positive, and our boat will rise, and it will be positive. But I know it's the focus, right? I know that's what it takes. So anyway, on to a very good school year and a productive board.
Director Rock.
I really loved that you are engaging students in the peer-to-peer at that United General. I'm a huge advocate of trauma-informed care and peer support, and I think it's needed in every organization and every branch of a community, especially in their schools, and to get students at such a young age involved in that is gonna last a lifetime. I am excited for school to start and cross country officially started today, so boys are stuck getting into their routine, although I had one that was very dedicated, one was not so much, so now he has to be.
He's gonna be sore tomorrow. Thank you for sharing. I want to share that I'm really excited for school to start and my kid is not. So I think the parents have one kind of feel and the teachers have one kind of feel and then the students a different sort of feel. So it's kind of exciting. All the new energy, the fresh start of every year. It's a great time. I want to remind everybody about our next meeting. It does come after school starts. It is on Monday, September 9th. It will be at 6 p.m. right here in the boardroom. So if there is nothing else, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
I second.
It's been moved by Director Diamond and seconded by Director Watts to adjourn the meeting. Director Diamond.
Yes.
Director Kelly.
Aye.
Director Watts.
Aye.
President Livette. Aye. Director New.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Drive safe, everybody.